Okay, so let's get right into it. Right now, the eyes of the world are on a handful of negotiators in Geneva, and they're trying to answer one massive question. Can the US and Iran actually pull back from the brink of war, or are we about to see things escalate in a really catastrophic way? Honestly, the answer is going to define the future of the Middle East.
And it really all boils down to this, doesn't it? In one room, you've got diplomats desperately trying to build bridges, but just outside that room, the drums of war are getting louder by the day. And make no mistake, this isn't some academic exercise, it is a frantic race against a ticking clock with, and this is no exaggeration, global security hanging in the balance. And while all the talking is going on, this is the reality on the ground. What you're looking at here is the Fordo facility, and it's buried deep inside a mountain. You can actually see the bomb impact area from a previous conflict right there. These are the kinds of heavily defended sites that are at the absolute heart of this military standoff. It's a pretty stark reminder that these negotiations are happening under the very real threat of force.
So let's set the scene. The year is 2026. It's February. All eyes are on Geneva. And what we're seeing is this incredibly tense mix of high-stakes diplomacy clashing with intense military pressure. And it's all playing out in real time.
I mean, this is just classic pressure tactics from both sides. While the negotiators are trading proposals, the US goes and moves the USS Gerald R. Ford, a massive aircraft carrier, into the region for what they're calling weeks-long operations. And of course, Iran isn't just going to sit back. They respond with their own show of force, running huge naval drills in the Strait of Hormuz, which, is a vital artery for the world's oil. It is a very, very dangerous game of chess.
And just in case the pressure wasn't high enough, President Trump goes and delivers this incredibly stark ultimatum. 1 month. That's the deadline. So this is not some open-ended negotiation. The clock is literally ticking, and the threat of traumatic consequences is just looming over every single word spoken in Geneva.
But to really truly understand the insane amount of pressure in that room, we've got to look back. I mean, how on earth did we get here? This crisis didn't just pop up out of nowhere. No, it's the culmination of a 70-year relationship that's been shaped by mistrust, a whole bunch of broken deals, and just escalating ambition. So let's trace the journey that led us to this very moment.
And what a roller coaster it's been. Believe it or not, this whole thing started back in the 1950s, with the US literally giving Iran its first bits of nuclear tech. But fast forward to 2002, the world discovers these secret nuclear sites, and all the alarm bells start ringing. That chaos eventually leads to the huge 2015 deal, the JCPOA, which was designed to stop Iran from getting a bomb. But then, just 3 years later, President Trump pulls the US out, calls it the worst deal ever, and slaps sanctions back on. Things just spiral from there, and by 2025, we see a direct 12-day war between Iran and Israel. And that brings us to today.
So with all of that complicated history, what are the big issues right now that could just blow this whole thing up? What are the absolute deal breakers on the table in Geneva?
And here is the core problem. On one side of the table, you've got the US team, led by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. They're demanding zero uranium enrichment, period, end of story. And they want to put serious limits on Iran's ballistic missile program. But on the other side, Iran is saying absolutely not. They're offering to water down their most highly enriched uranium, but they are insisting on their right to peaceful enrichment and are saying their missile program is completely off the table.
And this number right here, 60%, this is why everyone is so on edge. To give you some perspective, you need 90% purity for a weapon. Now, the hardest part of the whole process is getting from natural uranium up to about 20%. The jump from 20 to 60, and especially that final leap from 60 to 90, well, that's the scarily fast part. It means Iran is already uncomfortably close to having what it needs for a nuclear weapon.
And this just perfectly illustrates the impossible puzzle they're trying to solve. Each side has a red line that basically makes the other side's goals impossible. For Iran, its missiles are for self-defense, end of discussion. For the US, any potential pathway for Iran to get a bomb is a total non-starter. And for Israel, a key US ally, even a tiny bit of a nuclear program is too much. They want the whole thing dismantled. So how in the world do you find a compromise in the middle of all that?
So with the stakes this high and everyone's position so rigid, who are the actual people whose decisions are going to either lead to a peace deal or to a massive conflict? Well, right at the top, you've got the ultimate decision makers, President Trump and Supreme Leader Khamenei. In the actual room, you have their key envoys. But, and this is so important, look at the allies. The US has to constantly think about Israel and Saudi Arabia. And on the other side, Iran has massive influence through its regional proxies like Hezbollah and the Houthis. This is way more than just two sides talking. It's an incredibly crowded and complicated table.
Now, there is one other player here that is absolutely essential, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA. Think of them as the independent nuclear watchdog. Their inspectors are the ones who have to go on site and verify that everyone is actually doing what they promised to do. Without the IAEA, any deal is just based on trust. And right now, trust is in very, very short supply.
Yet, in the middle of all the threats and the military posturing, we still hear things like this. This quote is from Iran's foreign minister, publicly saying he hopes for a fair deal. It's the official language of diplomacy, and it's such a stark contrast to the ultimatums. It shows that the door to an agreement, officially at least, is still open.
So all of this, the history, the deal breakers, the players, it all brings us right back to that huge central question. We are watching in real time as one of two very different futures for the Middle East is about to be decided.
And this map right here shows you exactly why the outcome matters so much to everyone else. This isn't just about the US and Iran. The whole Middle East is basically a giant chessboard, with a pro-Iran bloc and an anti-Iran bloc. A spark in Geneva could so easily ignite all these other flashpoints, from Lebanon to Iraq to Yemen, and just plunge the entire region into absolute chaos.
So it really comes down to these two paths. Path one is a deal, a path to peace. It could stabilize the region, bring down global oil prices, and reconnect Iran's economy with the rest of the world. Path two is escalation. Failure in Geneva could easily trigger US military strikes, which would almost certainly lead to Iranian retaliation through its powerful proxies, risking a truly devastating regional war. The stakes just could not be any higher.
So in the end, it all comes down to this choice: diplomacy or deterrence. Is a real deal still possible, or is all this military pressure going to finally boil over into open conflict? The path they choose in that room in Geneva won't just shape the Middle East, it is going to shape the entire world.